At 23, my hair started falling out in clumps. So I changed to be honest, I was never proud of my hair. It wasn't thick, I didn't realize what it meant to me and my identity until I started losing it in handfuls, which forced me to rethink the way I moved in the world. Last February, my sister and I had just landed in Austin, Texas, from New York for what was supposed to be a relaxing, long weekend full of barbecue and laughs. When we arrived at it was a dollar coin-size bald spot on the back of my head. Of course, at the time, I was living in New York and working in media, although I had lost interest in both the industry and the city. I grew up in Hawaii. I remember mulling over the interviews for days, as if the job would be my golden ticket out of whatever I was feeling. I also remember, I suppose we could say I was pretty stressed, because that one spot quickly multiplied into 13 scattered around my head. The days that followed, my daily routine became doctor visits, tediously applying creams and foams to each spot nightly and every morning, constantly checking my scalp for baby bald spots and making sure my hair never shifted enough to reveal a spot to someone else. I tried acupuncture. As this all happened, I heard back from a job in Hawaii I had given up on. Turns out, but I couldn't shake the feeling that by passing on the opportunity, I was letting alopecia hold me back from chasing my dreams. After stressing, so I accepted the job and took the risk to move out to Hawaii on my own. As my friends and I gathered around one last pizza on the floor in my Brooklyn apartment, I lamented about how my big move could make my alopecia worse. What if I am maybe she was onto something. Maybe it was time. Obviously, her advice was easier said than done. The thing about shifting my mindset was a slow and sometimes incredibly painful process. When I had regrowth, stay positive, my dad would repeat. Focus on the positive. And when I did spiral about my hair, I turned to Instagram and stumbled across some seriously beautiful bald chicks who looked happy, which was something I couldn't imagine for myself. Seeing all those, as time went on, dealing with my alopecia got easier. My spirals less. Since life is stressful and unpredictable, I don't know whether I'll have another episode of alopecia again. But one thing, do you have a personal story you'd like to see published on HuffPost? Find out what we're looking for, Rhonda.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot bar. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park.